If you're new to sim racing or have already just started your journey, it can seem like a minefield when it comes to what equipment to buy and when. Unless you have unlimited amounts of money, you'll likely start with one or two pieces of equipment and then upgrade from there. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about what kit to buy and when, and what not to buy and why. And I'll also be explaining the 5 mistakes I made when I started out, which ended up being quite costly and left me with kit that I am just not using. The idea here is to buy once and not buy many. And what I mean by that is to buy a piece of kit, maybe a monitor, and then within 3 months realize that it's not what you wanted or it doesn't do what you need it to do. And so you have to sell it, lose a lot of money, and buy the item you needed in the first place. So what do I need to buy? Well, for the most part, if you're just starting out, you can use a lot of what you might already have. You can start your sim racing journey with a laptop, a keyboard and a mouse. A lot of laptops nowadays come with a beefy NVIDIA graphics cards or AMD graphics cards. And so if you happen to have one of those, then why not start or why not try sim racing out on that initially? But if you really want to start buying kit, then I think the first thing I would recommend is to try and spend the least amount of money or the smallest amount of money that you possibly can at the beginning. Buy yourself second-hand wheelbase, second-hand pedals, and see if you actually really want to start getting into sim racing. And if you actually love sim racing, a lot of people spend a lot of money at the beginning, like I did, and then maybe realize that it's not for them, and then are faced with having to sell their kit at a loss, and so lose a lot of money. So you've tried sim racing, maybe with some kit that you've got lying around, a laptop, a keyboard and a mouse, or you've purchased a second-hand cheap pedal and wheel set, and now you're wanting to upgrade. The first thing I would recommend would be the pedals. Between the pedals and the wheelbase, most of your lap times are going to come from a good pedal set. And if you can, buy the best pedals you can afford. If you're on a tighter budget, then Fanatec do the CSL Elite V2 pedal set, which is a really good entry-level set of pedals. If you have a little bit more money, then I would recommend something like the Acertec Forte sim racing pedal set or the Welt Sprints. Now both of these are a 2 pedal set, right? So you get the accelerator and the brake, you don't get a clutch. You can upgrade to the clutch later. Now hear me out, why am I recommending that you pay just a little bit more money to get less pedals? This brings me to the first mistake that I made, which was when I was starting out, I bought a 3-pedal set and a shifter because I thought that's what's in a car. I'll get a shifter that would give me, lots more options. But ultimately, after minutes of jumping in the rig, I found that I didn't want a shifter, and therefore I don't use it. And so I'm left with a shifter that is actually still in the loft to this very day, and a 3-pedal set with a clutch I just don't use. So this way, if you get a 2-pedal set and you realize later on that you want a H pattern shifter, and you want a clutch, then you can upgrade later at a later point if you really want. Now, if you do upgrade to a pedal set like the Acertec Fortes and the Welt Sprints, you're gonna want to mount these to a rig, and the reason for this is because the amount of pressure that you're going to have to apply to these pedals as you're braking, as you're driving. Putting these under a desk, it's not going to work very well, because when you stamp on that brake, and you're going to have to stamp on that brake, they're going to move. And also, if you think that so let's say you've purchased a Logitech G29 wheelbase, if you think that you're going to want a direct drive, if you're already thinking about a direct drive, you're also going to want to mount that to a rig as well, just because the amount of force that's going to come through those direct drive wheelbases. So this brings me to the second mistake I made, and that is I didn't buy an aluminium profile rig. I originally bought the Track Racer TR8, which, for those that know, it's a tubular rig, and I love the way it looks. I think it looks great. But they have one slight flaw which I completely missed. I hadn't anticipated, I hadn't considered. and that is you're going to want to add accessories. Maybe it's a button box, maybe it's a tablet to display more, information on tyre pressures and temperatures and lap times. Maybe you're going to want a wind simulator. Maybe you're going to want to add motion, or maybe you're going to want to add belt tensioners. The point here is that there are so many accessories that you can add to a SimRig to increase its realism. You're going to struggle with a tubular rig. Now, I know that Track Racer have accessories to add a button box or even their own motion systems now, but before they didn't. You had to bolt the rig to a platform and then bolt the motion to the platform. But even then, this limits you to the number of products that you can buy, that you can add to your rig. But with an aluminium profile rig, they are so flexible, they are so versatile, so adaptable. Seriously consider getting yourself one of those aluminium profile rigs for sure. Now, the next upgrade I would think about is the display. So when I got into sim racing, I was immediately hooked on VR, and I still am to this day. All the driving that I do is in VR. So what I thought I would do is I would buy a really small display that I could just attach to the rig, that I could use, for logging on, for launching games, for configuring games and things like that. But what I quickly realized, and this brings me to my next mistake number 3, after a period of time, those titles, those games that either don't have VR support or have really poor VR support, the urge for me to want to try them, like ACC or F1 2022, the urge to want to drive them just became huge for me. So what I did was I then purchased a 49-inch curved screen, sold the other display obviously at a loss, so that I could enjoy both. So I think my point is, consider what titles you also want to drive when you're choosing displays. Triples are great. They are very popular and for very, very good reason. If you want VR, consider if you want a single curved screen. I mean, some of the Samsung curved screens are absolutely gorgeous now. Or consider if you want to go for triples. The fourth mistake I made was I didn't realize, I hadn't paid attention, or I hadn't done my research to understand that people can suffer quite badly with motion sickness when using a VR headset. So my advice is to try it out if you can. Try it out, see what you think, see if motion sickness is an issue for you. See if you are absolutely hooked on VR. But I've seen many people sell their VR headsets on the internet and Facebook groups very, very quickly after purchasing it. Motion sickness is just something that they just could not deal with. And again, if you want to try VR, if you're not sure about VR, then maybe look at getting yourself a second-hand headset just to see if it's something that you really, really love. The next upgrade to consider at this point, given that you've already got the rig, you've already got the displays, you've already got a good pedal set, is the wheelbase. This used to come down to how big a budget you have, but the last few years there have been some new players who have entered the marketplace, and now they offer direct drive wheelbases for a fraction of what I paid for my Fanatec DD2. So because of this, I wouldn't recommend getting a belt-driven or a gear-driven wheelbase, simply because direct drive wheelbases are now just so affordable. And with it being direct drive, you're going to get far more feedback from the wheelbase than you ever would with a gear or a belt-driven one. And finally, mistake number 5 was I invested originally heavily into the Fanatec ecosystem. And years ago, that meant that if you bought a Fanatec wheelbase, you had to buy a Fanatec wheel. There was no you couldn't buy one manufacturer and just attach any other wheel. But nowadays, manufacturers are now supplying quick release adapters that allow you to use their wheels with other wheelbases and their wheelbases with other manufacturers' wheels. So just consider what wheels you're likely to want, and can they be used on the wheelbase that you want. So hopefully this video has been of use to you and has hopefully also given you some things to consider that maybe you weren't considering before. Anyway, let me know down in the comments below if you liked the video. Also, let me know where you are in your sim racing journey. Are you about to purchase your first upgrade, or are you well and truly on your way? And if you want to purchase any of the kit that I've talked about, there are some affiliate links down in the description below at no extra cost to you. They just go to help towards the channel and help us keep doing the things that we love doing. Anyway, see you in the next one.